Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the webinar Status and Opportunities of the Greek Solar PV Market. My name is Christian. I'm a project manager at Solarplaza, and I'm here together with my colleague Marco. And today we are going to talk about the Greek PV market. And this is our webinar program. Stelios Psomas will tell us more about the status opportunities in the Greek PV market. He will be discussing the history of the market, current developments, impacts of the tender program, new business models, and more. And after the presentation, there will be room for questions from your side in the Q&A, of course. But before we continue, I would like to introduce Solarplaza briefly to you. Our mission is to positively impact the world by accelerating the sustainable energy transition. And through our events, newsletters, and news portal, we help renewable energy professionals become more effective in their business development by providing unique networking opportunities and high-level content. And since 2004, we have been organizing more than 125 events all across the globe. And in the upcoming months, we have some exciting events coming up, such as our annual Solar Asset Management Europe conference in Frankfurt next month. We also have the first edition of the Solar Future Hungary in November, and of course the upcoming second edition of the Solar Future Greece. And this webinar is in anticipation of this event of the Solar Future Greece, which we are co-organizing with our strategic partner Helapco. And at the conference, we will be exploring business opportunities in the Greek solar PV market with a diverse group of both national and international stakeholders. And this event once again aims to be a gathering of over 100 private sector executives, and it's promising to be a great opportunity to meet with regulators, policymakers, and other key stakeholders, and also network with experienced project developers, investors, and lawyers, and simultaneously learn all there is to know about the tenders, market conditions, regulatory developments, large-scale solar development, and new business models. And currently we are working hard on setting up an exciting and interesting program. Here you see a selection of the speakers already confirmed at the event, and we will be adding more speakers to the program continuously. So make sure to subscribe on the website for updates to stay in the loop about all the developments. Now, before we begin, some final practical notes. It's possible to submit questions during the entire webinar by typing them in the question box. Also, in case you have technical problems, you can type those in the chat box. And this whole webinar will be recorded as well. So afterwards, a recording of the webinar and the presentation slides itself will be made available. But also at this point, you can already download the slides in the handout section visible on the screen. Yeah, please do that if it helps you. And our speaker of today is Stelios Psomas. He is a leading Greek PV consultant, and he is currently a policy advisor for Helapco, and he has been campaigning for solar in Greece already for a long time, and was and still is actively involved in the introduction and drafting of PV-related legislation. So I suggest we continue with the webinar and go to the presentation. Stelios, please go ahead, and we will give you the control of the presentation.
Hello, everybody. Since we have an international audience, I would like the Greek attendees to excuse me for giving some background information they may already know, but I think it's vital to understand the dynamics of the market. So the presentation will go as follows. First, I will give you some information about the status and history of the Greek PV market, which I think it's important because, of course, this past has created a know-how which is so valuable for the present and the future. Then I will give more details on the current developments and opportunities of the Greek PV market. We will go into more detail regarding the existing tender program because you will find some interesting figures, I guess, and you will also be able to know the basic process steps you have to take in order to participate. And of course, an issue which is really important, it's the new business models that will be available as of next year. So here you can find a very simplified diagram of the milestones of the Greek PV market. Actually, the market was initiated back in 2006 with the introduction of a feed-in tariff system for PV. However, it took almost 4 years and a very serious simplification of the authorization procedures at that time in order for the market to commence. As a result, we had an amazing boom of the market during the years of 2011 to 2013. Greece became a gigawatt annual market, and at that time, very, very few markets, even including the big countries, were at the gigawatt level. However, this was a bitter success because the system proved to be unsustainable at that moment, so we faced retroactive feed-in tariff cuts and also freezing of new projects. If I wanted to find a similar example in Europe, I would say that more or less Greece followed the example of Spain, and I guess we're still moving towards the same direction as the Spanish market is now flourishing again. This is more or less the situation with the Greek market, as I will explain later on. In 2016, we had an introduction of the tender system and also a first pilot tender. And I guess this is a very important milestone because since then, the tender system has become the norm. And obviously, following the trend, the worldwide trend, costs have gone down. So nowadays, we're in a completely new situation where the future for PV seems quite bright. As I said, we had a very glorious past, and we do have a promising future. Just to give you some important figures, nowadays, Greece has a little bit more than 2.6 gigawatt installed. Most of them were installed in the 3 years between 2011 and 13, and they were actually based on the feed-in tariff system. During that period, over 5 billion euros were invested in Greece, and you can imagine that this happened amidst an unprecedented economic crisis. Everybody knows about the Greek crisis. However, the PV sector was the last one to be affected by this economic crisis. As a result of this boom, the last few years, PV contributes 7% of the electricity demand in Greece, which brings Greece to the 3rd place worldwide after the Honduras and Italy, and neck to neck with Germany with regard to PV contribution to electricity needs. Greece also ranks 5th worldwide with regard to installed PV capacity per capita, albeit the 5-year freezing of the market and the very fast development in other countries. As I said, we have a new support scheme of 2016, and we have new targets for the next decade, which we'll examine later on in more details. In this diagram, you can see the development of the Greek market. In 2013, we reached the gigawatt level of annual installed capacity. Then we had the dark ages with practically zero market. But something seems to change since the tender program has started in 2018, more or less. Obviously, those projects that have secured a feed-in premium from the tender, the auctions that took place in 2018, will be connected to the grid this year and the year after. So if you see our first estimates for this year and the next years, you see that we are starting to reach 3-digit figures again, and the market is becoming more interesting and, most importantly, more sustainable than in the past. Here is the status of the PV market nowadays. As you can see, most of the systems in Greece, around 80% is ground-mounted systems and only 20% is rooftop systems. This is not the case in all countries, as you know. And it seems, as we will discuss later on, that the ground-mounted systems, and especially the utility scale, is probably the most promising segment of the market, as we will see later on. What is even more important for investors is the average energy yield of PV systems in Greece. This is the country average, including small residential rooftop systems, which are not doing as well as the big ground-mounted systems. However, you can see that the average is around 1,500 kilowatt hours per kilowatt peak per year, which is, as an average, a very good figure for investors, guaranteeing the quite high returns on investments, as we will see later on. Here is the trend of the average PV capex in Greece for systems over 1 megawatt, including grid connection, average grid connection costs. Obviously, this is the average price, but you can see that we had a lot of a huge reduction compared to 10 years ago. More or less, average prices in Greece, capex prices, follow the international trend, and I would say they are more or less similar to the prices in Germany or Spain. We don't have any nasty surprises regarding costs or extra hidden costs. Things are quite clear. The most important of all is that PV has become nowadays the least cost power option available in the country. Obviously, this is an international trend, but now we do have very concrete proof that PV is the cheapest form of energy technology known to the country. And we base that on, as you can see in this diagram, the prices for PV and wind are the cost as per the auction results, the last 2 years auction results. And these are systems to be connected to the grid for PV 2020 and for wind during the next 3 years. While the red diagram shows a new lignite power plant which is now being built, and this is the anticipated cost of this new lignite power plant. As you can see, there's no way that fossil fuel plants can compete PV, and of course this low cost of PV is exactly the cause for the new business models that are now appearing in the Greek market. Apart from the tender scheme, Greece has also 2 self-consumption schemes. One is the so-called net metering scheme, which is in place during the last 5 years. This scheme is valid for residential and commercial application systems up to 1 megawatt in capacity. And we do have another self-consumption scheme for commercial and industrial prosumers. This is different in the sense that there's no capacity limit. It's a real-time self-consumption, contrary to the other scheme. And one can sell up to 20% of the produced energy with compensation, and the compensation is more or less related to the wholesale prices of the market. Yesterday, the Greek Prime Minister made some comments during the UN Climate Summit, and then in a rather official way, he said a few interesting things. The first one was that Greece is ready to close down its existing lignite power plants in the next 10 years, which is good news, because Greece was one of the few European countries that didn't have a deadline for closing down lignite power plants. The second, which is related to the PV industry, is that Greece is expected to increase its renewable energy share from 31%, which was the target of the draft energy and climate plan, to 35% of the gross energy consumption. This is the total gross energy consumption. When we're talking about renewable electricity, the draft target was 56% of the gross electricity consumption, but it seems that by the end of this year, this target will increase even more and be more than 60, even 65% by 2030. That is, almost two-thirds of electricity in Greece should come from renewable energy sources. And considering that PV and wind had the lion's share in this share, you can imagine that the existing draft target, which is 6.9 gigawatt by 2030, will increase considerably during the next couple of months. And we expect it to be around at least 8 gigawatt peak in the next decade. Considering we have 2.6 now, there is still room for almost 5.5 gigawatt in the next decade, which is an average of more than half a gigawatt per year. As I said before, during the last 3 years, we have a new support scheme based on auctions and feed-in premiums, and this is consistent with the guidelines on state aid for environmental protection energy of the EU. The Greek system was authorized by the European Union, so it moves smoothly. There have been a few auctions during the last few years, and I will give you the results of these auctions later on. For the moment, what I want to highlight is that on December 12th this year, we'll have another tender for systems below 20 megawatts. And the maximum auctioned capacity is 287 megawatts. We'll know the exact figure as soon as investors present their applications. Then we'll know the exact figure of this December auction. For 2020, what we know so far is that for the systems below 20 megawatts, we'll have what's left from the 2019 target plus another 300 megawatt. And there will also be a common technology neutral auction. PV and wind are competing. When we say PV, we refer to systems over 20 megawatts. And the common auction capacity is 500. Just for your information, in the previous common PV and wind auction, PV got the lion's share of this auctioned capacity, just because PV is now much cheaper even than big wind projects. Here is an interesting table for you. It's the auctions results. The upper table shows the average auctions results expressed as euros per megawatt hour. As you can see, we had a pilot auction in 2016. Then we had 2 auctions in 2018 and 2 auctions in 2019. You can, at that time, we had 3 different categories of PV. Systems below 1 megawatt, systems between 1 and 20 megawatts, and systems above 20 megawatts. As of 2019, the first 2 categories were merged. So we now have 2 categories. One is up to 20 megawatts and the other is above 20 megawatts. As you can see, the lower price achieved so far in these auctions was 53 euros per megawatt hour. And according to the latest announcement by RAE, the Regulatory Authority for Energy, in the coming auction on December 12th, the ceiling price for PV will be 66 euros per megawatt hour, and it will be a bit higher for wind projects. Let me give you some basic auction rules for those interested in participating. In order to be able to participate in tenders, the competent authority for auctions, which is RAE, they announced that all project owners must have secured a so-called production license, which is required for systems above 1 megawatt peak, as well as a connection agreement or a final grid connection terms offer, both in force. In order to get a connection agreement, you have to have an environmental permit as well. So before being able to participate in an auction, you need to spend some time authorizing your project. Once you participate and you are successful in bidding, depending on the size of your system, you have up to 12 months to connect it to the grid if your system is below 1 megawatt, up to 15 months if your system is up to 5 megawatt, and up to 18 months if your system is below 20 megawatt. And a 6-month additional extension to all these deadlines is provided for those projects connected to the grid via a substation. Normally, this is more than enough time to get the rest of the permits needed in order to proceed to construction of the power plant. The only exception so far has been systems that participated in the small category tender below 1 megawatt because of a technical problem of the grid operator. So there was an extension of 3 months for them to connect their systems, because obviously the investors were okay with their obligations. It was a grid operator problem, so they extended these deadlines. Now, when it goes to financing, obviously, just to give you an interesting information, during the old phase of the PV development, I mean 5 years ago, almost all of the PV systems connected in Greece, constructed in Greece, were financed by Greek banks. Very few projects were financed by international banks. It seems to be the same again now, only this time we do have some more interest by foreign banks to finance projects in Greece. However, even foreign companies coming to Greece to invest, they're always looking at the opportunities of the Greek banking market. Just to give you an average financing scheme for the big 4 banks in Greece, the normal terms is you can get a long-term loan up to 80% of the investment cost. The tenor is between 10 and 14 years. The interest rate is based on Euribor, 6 months Euribor plus 3.5 to 4%, including fees. As I said before, this is an average and depends on the profile of the investor. And taking account of existing CapEx and OpEx figures nowadays, you end up having an unlevered project IRR of 9 to 10% for projects that will start construction next year. And of course, a double-digit IRR for levered projects, depending on the profile of your financing scheme, which is obviously not bad, taking into account that most of the risks related to the Greek economy are gone now, and the economy is recovering from a 10-year-long crisis. What is even more important than the existing scheme, the existing tender scheme, is all the changes we expect to happen as of next year. The EU target model will become effective in Greece as of the second half of 2020. There were some delays in enforcing the EU target model. This was supposed to be in place even from last year. However, I don't think we'll have many more details. The Greek exchange market is developing, and politicians are pushing to have the EU target model and the corresponding electricity markets in place and operating the latest year from now. PV projects will have to participate in these energy markets, especially the balancing market. Any system above 500 kilowatts is obliged to participate in this balancing market. But obviously bigger projects are also looking at the opportunities of participating directly to the wholesale market instead of participating in the tender scheme. And many companies are looking forward to sign corporate PPAs, which will also become effective as of next year. As the levelized cost of PV projects is already competitive to wholesale prices now in Greece, I will give you the average wholesale prices in Greece in a few minutes. And there are also many industrial consumers who are looking forward for this new business model. Another interesting market, which will also start moving as of next year, is the PV plus storage market. There are already many applications for hybrid projects in the non-interconnected islands of Greece, and Greece, as you know, have many islands with autonomous grids, which makes real sense to have a hybrid system of PV plus storage. However, the authorization scheme is not yet clear about this market, and we are expecting the regulatory framework for storage to be finalized next year. Up to now, we only have small storage systems combined with net metering schemes and systems up to 30 kVA, which is only appropriate for residential and small commercial systems, and of course has nothing to do with the huge potential of storage systems in front of the meter, which we are still expecting to be regulated. And as I said, this will happen as of next year. Here is a diagram of the average wholesale market prices in Greece during the last 8 years. As you can see, the prices in Greece are much higher than other European countries. And nowadays, just because of the increasing CO2 prices and the fact that Greece is still dependent on lignite power stations, as you can see, the marginal system price is increasing during the last 3-4 years, and is expected to stay at these levels for the next decade, more or less, which is good news for those investors wanting to invest, to participate directly in the wholesale market or sign corporate PPAs. Compared to other European markets, it seems that Greece, when the market becomes mature, of course, can be a very interesting market for this kind of PPAs and participating in the wholesale market. Now, there are many people that ask whether there is an opportunity for buying an existing and operating PV power plant, considering that these existing power plants have very high feed-in tariffs. The answer is not really. There are not many projects that change hands. Very few people are willing to sell operating PV plants, and up to now, to be honest, there are not big portfolios in Greece. We don't have really utility scale PV power plants so far. This is a new trend. This is something that is only happening now. For example, the last auction in 2019 was the first opportunity for utility scale power plants. We had power plants of 200 megawatt for the first time, and this seems to be a trend from now on. There are many international players, multinational companies that are interested in the Greek market, and they are trying to develop their own portfolio, which may consist of hundreds of megawatt of PV power stations. So a new market segment is born, but just to have a definite answer on this secondary PV market, one should be very, very lucky to find an operating PV plant for sale. So one has to start development from scratch. This is the rule. Just to give you an idea of the interest expressed so far, Before December 2017, there was practically there was no interest for new PV power stations, as we were still experiencing the freezing of the market. However, as of that time, you can see that the competent authority, RAE, has received, until June, they received almost 8.5 gigawatt of new applications for systems above 1 megawatt peak. There was another round in September, but the results have not yet publicized. But my guess is that by now we will have almost 10 gigawatt of applications. So there is a very big pipeline and still increasing, because, as I said, new players are coming in Greece, and as you can see, figures are increasing. As it seems that the market is starting again, obviously we need to change the rules that these markets operates, because we're now operating with the old rules that were set up 10 years ago. Just last week, RAE has started a public consultation for simplifying the procedures for getting a production license. And the Ministry of Energy is also initiating a process of public consultation, calling the market players to present their proposals for how to simplify procedures and make it as simple and as short as possible, so that systems can be constructed as soon as possible. Our market's proposal, Helapco's proposal, is that there is no real need anymore for issuing the so-called production license, which is the first step to start with the authorization of systems. And we also don't need the so-called installation and operation permits, because if one looks at the chain of authorization, everything which is really needed is controlled and checked in other steps of this authorization process. If we do abolish these three licenses, we expect that the authorization time will be reduced by at least 2 years, which makes a lot of difference, as you can realize. We also demand streamlined environmental permitting. The situation now is much better than in the past, but still there is room for improvement. And also an issue which needs to be resolved is the land use issues, because there are some unnecessary obstacles for PV deployment. The government has said that they are willing to simplify processes. We are actually talking to them, and we expect some positive changes. If not by the end of this year, I hope early next year. This is more or less the current PV authorization scheme. As you can see, there are a lot of steps one has to take in order to finalize the development and construction and operation of their power plants. And this is a very simplified scheme again of what Helapco is suggesting to the ministries in order to make things much easier for investors. I said before that regardless of the bitter success of 5 years ago, there is something which was left, which I think was very important. During this boom of PV market expansion, we created a lot of PV jobs. Actually, we estimate that the indirect and induced jobs were around 58,000 in Greece at that time. Obviously, most of these jobs were frozen or lost in the coming years. However, the know-how has not been lost. And apart from national production of certain BOS equipment like mounting systems and trackers, transformers, cables, telemetry software, and communications equipment, needed for PV deployment, and we do have an excellent know-how and technology, I must say. However, I think that the most valuable asset is the experienced companies and staff with know-how in developing and delivering PV projects. During the dark ages of the PV market in Greece, many companies have looked for opportunities in other countries all around the globe. And for somebody who wants to invest in Greece, especially foreign companies that want to come here, they must feel certain that they will find the appropriate engineers and the appropriate developers and the appropriate staff needed with very extended know-how, and they could deliver to them a state-of-the-art PV power plant. So, to conclude, the Greek PV market is starting again. As I said before, I focus here on the utility scale opportunities. Of course, there are opportunities in the smaller segments as well. However, this is more a market for the domestic players, and the biggest problem that they face at the moment is grid congestion. It seems that the medium voltage grid is starting to congest all around the country. However, there are still opportunities in the high voltage grid. That's why I insisted on the utility scale market, which seems to be one of the two segments that we expect to bring a lot of megawatts in order to achieve the national targets for 2030. The other market that will go well, and we expect that will be accelerated in the coming years, is the small residential and small commercial markets based on self-consumption schemes. We need to find some ways to support the medium scale markets, and the only way to do that is to develop new medium voltage grids. This may take some time, but this is vital for our market, because small size PV companies need this segment in order to survive, in order to be able to keep the know-how they have so far. So for the foreign friends that are attending this webinar, I say, yes, Greece is a very interesting market. It will develop fast. So there are opportunities for the next 2, 3, 5 years. So I welcome you in coming and investing in Greece, and of course in attending the Solarplaza event on the 21st of November. There we will give some more details on how to proceed, even if you don't have any previous experience of the Greek PV market yet. Thank you.
Thank you, Stelios, for the interesting presentation. We'll now proceed with the Q&A right away. In the meantime, I see that some people are asking that the handouts are not available. We can't resolve this right now, but once again, to reinstate, the slides will be available after the webinar, so you should still be able to access them. And also, I would like to encourage our listeners to keep submitting questions. First of all, Stelios, I would like to ask you a question, because we had you on the webinar last year, of course, and a lot has changed over in terms of developments in the market last year. Are there some things that have progressed differently than you would expect? What are the main surprises in your opinion compared to how the situation was 1 year ago?
No real surprises. I think we had described the market for 2019 more or less as it progressed. If there was a surprise, was the small scale market, I would say, because to be honest, nobody expected that there would be thousands of applications for systems up to 500 kilowatts. That's why we reached the situation with the congestion of the medium voltage grids all over the country. The second surprise is that following last year's webinar and event of Solarplaza, I see now that many of the attendees at these events actually decided to come to Greece and invest, and some of the big applications we've seen during the last few months actually are coming from these companies. And that was a very, let's say, quick decision by them. It only took them less than a year to start delivering results and delivering applications in order to proceed. These are positive surprises, let's say, and the figures are looking much better than we anticipated last year.
Okay, that's definitely very good to hear. So we have a couple of questions coming in, and some of them are related to the amount of applications that are coming in. So we have one person asking whether well, the large amount of application points to maybe an overdemand or a potential stopping barrier for foreign investors who are now starting from scratch a licensing process. And someone else is also asking this in the light of the 2030 target. This current level of applications is what is your opinion on that? Is that encouraging, or is it a sign of a potential bubble that is coming up? What's your view on that?
Well, first you have to compare it with other figures. For example, in Spain, we had 15 gigawatt of applications per month. So let's say spectacular or threatening. The other thing is that not all these applications will end up to real projects. Of course, when you apply, you can expect that only a portion of these applications will continue to the end. If there is a danger of for some of these applications, I would say most of the problems will be related to land use issues. Some of the applications were handed without thorough due diligence about land, and as there are certain land use rules, not all of these applications are expected to fit to these rules. So some of these projects will be rejected, I guess. So I wouldn't worry at this moment. As of the targets, as I said before, we're expecting the target to increase. But as you know, and this is a European rule, in 3 years' time, every member state has to revise their targets. And of course, if the market seems to develop very fast, the target for PV could be increased again in 3 years' time. So I don't see any real problem, at least at the moment. If we ended up with 50 gigawatt of applications, that would be a different discussion. But so far, I think we have this small overcapacity needed to secure real projects.
Thank you.
However, no matter how many applications we have, what is certain is that we need more grid development, and this should happen no matter what. Most of the grids are financed by the investors themselves, but also the grid and the system operator have to do their part. They do have to suggest and develop new grids for the coming years. Otherwise, we will end up in a dead end again.
Thank you for elaborating and the explanation on that. And you also talked quite a little bit about the upcoming framework and development of PPAs in the country, of course. And a more detailed question on this from someone is whether it will be possible for an asset owner to sign a corporate PPA and then supply the consumer through a private wire.
The rules are not set yet. They will be set in the first half of 2020. A producer will have two options, more or less. The one is to participate in the forward market of the Greek energy exchange, and the other is to have a corporate PPA either with a direct line, which I don't think will be the norm, or through a so-called sleeved PPA, like the one that's takes place in the Netherlands. This seems to be the most obvious model for corporate PPA so far. This is not valid yet, but companies will be able to do that in the next 9-12 months.
Okay, thank you. That's good to know. And then another question from the investor side. Someone's asking for a foreign investor when it comes to licensing. Would you advise or consult foreign investors to start licensing process from the beginning, or is it a better option, if that's possible, to purchase an already developed license?
Well, if they find an already existing license, of course they should buy it, but good luck. There are certain business models. For example, there are companies that are developing their own projects from scratch. Usually there are also EPCs, so they construct the power plant, they connect it to the grid, and then they hand it to interested investors. This is one model. There are many companies that are actually doing that currently. The other option is to find some collaborators and to do their own development and to find their own EPC and own the power plant. But it's very hard to find just the licenses before the construction of the plant. So far, we don't have many such examples. So there are two options. Either you find a company knowing that their business model is to sell an operating power plant, so you start negotiating with them from the very beginning. So you have a pre-agreement on how you proceed together, or you start your development from scratch. These are the two options one has.
Okay, yeah, and of course there aren't many, not many developers are expected to sell their licensing. We also have
there are some, sorry, Christian. There are some developments though who are not even interested in the auction scheme. Mm-hmm. They are developing projects in order to participate, to have a corporate PPAs, or to participate in the wholesale market. This is their long-term market from now on. So their placement in the Greek market is, let's say, long-term. They are not interested in just developing something and after 3-4 years sell it and go away. They see the Greek market as a long-term investment.
I see. Yeah. Okay, and regarding the feed-in tariff system, the premium, how is this system designed? Is someone asking? Is this a constant pricing scheme, or is this also related to the merchant prices in the market?
It's more or less a feed-in tariff with a different name, to be honest. In the sense that they get the feed-in premise, you actually get a fixed price, and the only obligation you have is to pay something in the order of €2 per megawatt hour to an aggregator in order to participate in the balancing market. So if, for example, the feed-in premium is €70 per megawatt hour, one should expect that the real income will be around €68 per megawatt hour. It works like the feed-in system, more or less. Not big surprises.
I understand. And a quite detailed question we have here. Do you know about any solid information on the recent procedural changes regarding inspections and permitting from the archaeological authorities?
No, I'm not aware of any changes. In order to get the environmental permit, you have to have some checks from various authorities, including 3 archaeological authorities, including forestry, including any other needed authority in order to get the environmental permit. That was the case even 10 years ago. I don't know of any recent changes on this issue.
Okay, that's clear. Could you talk a little bit more about the impact of the PV participation in the wholesale market? So more specifically, will old or only the new projects have to participate in this market? And how will the balancing cost affect the final net tariffs?
So far, according to the regulations in place, only new systems are obliged to participate in the markets. For example, any investor participating in the tender scheme, they are obliged to participate in the energy markets. And at least until now, systems above 500 kilowatts are obliged to do so. I gave some figures about the average wholesale prices in Greece. They are more or less over the average LCOE of a PV power plant now in Greece. Just to give you an idea, with the existing prices in Greece, a system that will be connected next year, I mean a system of a certain scale, let's say over 10 megawatts, has an LCOE, a levelized cost of electricity, around or even less than 40 euros per megawatt hour. Considering that the average wholesale price in Greece now is floating around 65 euros per megawatt hour, you see that there is a potential for PV to be very competitive in this market. And considering that the fossil fuel power plants are faced with an ever increasing cost, I think that PV will be one of the winners in at least for the first years in the market. The real challenge will be to guarantee that we'll have long-term contracts with corporates as well, so that they can use a mixed business model using both the wholesale market and the corporate PPAs. That's the best system and the best scheme which reduces one's risks. But as for the balancing market, I gave you an average price. Talking to aggregators, it seems that especially for PV, we will have an initial starting cost of around 2 euros per megawatt hour, which is expected to drop as the market increases and matures. The more systems that are involved in the balancing market, and the more spread the systems are geographically, the less the risks. So, and there will also be some competition between aggregators. So we expect that in the coming years, this fee will be even less than 2 euros per megawatt hour.
Okay, thank you for explaining that in more detail. Because of time reasons, I suggest we almost close the webinar. So let's discuss two final questions. Unfortunately, we won't be able to cover all the questions, but of course we will be able to go much more in depth and more in detail during the event itself. To close off a little bit regarding the grid connection terms and developments going on there. Do you expect that the DSO will be obliged to become more transparent and disclose the medium voltage capacities on a local level?
This should be the case. You know, the grid connection terms is, I would call it's a social asset, and as such, it should be protected in a way, and the only way to protect such an asset is to be as transparent as possible. What happens now is, if you go at the DSO's website, you can see, generally speaking, the available capacity on a substation level. However, this is not real time. This reflects the situation 3 or 6 months ago. And considering that we had thousands of applications, maybe this capacity is not available anymore. Yes, I think that not only for this, but for any other matter related to the authorization scheme, there should be transparency. Everything should be online, everything should be real time, and any investor has the right to know what's happening, so as to feel 100% sure that nothing problematic or nasty happens behind their back. This is the spirit of the new Renewable Energy Directive as well, which will be active in 2 years' time, which says that every country should assign one or more focal points where the investor will go. Everything will be online, and they should be able to follow their investment and during the whole authorization process. So yes, this would happen. This should happen as soon as possible.
Okay, and finally, a bit of a more overarching question on your vision on the market. Someone wonders, do you think that storage should actually already be included in any new development for large-scale solar as of now?
Unfortunately, it cannot be included because the operator will, the grid operator will only accepts applications for small systems combined with net metering. Once the regulatory regime is in place, yes, they should consider that, yes. Because obviously storage offers an added value to the system, not just selling energy, it's all the services that are offered to the system, which obviously have a price, and they will increase income for investors, and they will reduce the risk of their investment. But they will only be able to do that once the regime is in place, that is, as of next year.
Okay, thank you for that. So I suggest we close off the Q&A, which will also be the end of this webinar overall. So thank you very much for your presentation, Stelios, and all your answers on the questions asked by the audience. I hope everyone enjoyed the discussion today, and the recordings, including the slides, will be available on the website soon, and also through an email you will receive. And make sure to subscribe for updates or register right away on our event website. Please keep in mind that the early bird price expires next week already. And furthermore, there are at this stage still opportunities to get involved in this event as well. So please reach out to me personally to discuss this further and explore any potential ways of getting involved. And furthermore, I thank you very much for joining today, and I'm looking forward to meet you all in Athens at the end of November. Goodbye.